Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm going to be talking about Kratom. Just a reminder, I am not a doctor and I am not a chemist. I do not encourage the use of any substances, legal or illegal, and this video is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes only. So let's get into it. Just a little quick note here, this is very serious, this is not medical advice, and I want to make that very clear because Kratom is very controversial. So Kratom is a plant that is often used was often used for herbal medicine and is now used to help with a few different things. People use it as a cognitive enhancer, as sometimes an alternative to Adderall. I put alternative up because it's not like it acts the same as Adderall in the brain, but more commonly is used for the opioid agonist effects. So what does that mean? That means it hits the opioid receptor and gives you the natural endorphins rush that you would get from working out or running or whatever. It is obviously, just because I mentioned it's an opioid and it has endorphins rush, can be addictive. What does this mean? For people who have a propensity to be addicted to opioids, this can be addictive. So, it also does have a tolerance buildup. To my knowledge, people have said that it does not have any sort of tolerance buildup, but I do not believe that to be the case. Most medications do. And the fact of the matter is, when you take opioids, they are addictive because they give you a natural high, so to speak. It's your natural system telling your body that you're supposed to be enjoying whatever you're doing, from, like, for example, exercising, running, weightlifting, all those other sort of things. So when it comes to this, people will claim it's less addictive than opioids. Than traditional opioids like, say, oxycodone or heroin. I don't know that to be the case. I've heard that it can still be extremely addictive, but where do I think it has application? I think it has application as an over-the-counter pain reliever. And when I say over-the-counter, it's not regulated like over-the-counter pain relievers are. But why do I say that? Tylenol and Advil can only go so far. And now that opioids are extremely looked down upon, and it's very unlikely, especially if you go in for a procedure with your tooth, or you have something done like an ingrown toenail procedure and you're in an extreme amount of pain, the likelihood that that doctor is going to prescribe you any sort of opioid is extremely minimal. They're much more likely to prescribe you an extra strength dose of Tylenol, which we all know is extremely dangerous for your liver. Tylenol is said to have some effects on the liver, but the data is still very lacking on whether its effects are truly dangerous for those who do not have prior liver issues and are also not taking this chronically. I think Kratom is extremely useful for people who wouldn't be taking it chronically. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you have a procedure like a root canal. Most doctors and dentists will not give you any sort of opioid prescription for a root canal, and those can be excruciatingly painful. A lot of people will try the Advil and Tylenol regimen where you switch every 3 hours, or the Advil-Tylenol conjunction medication now that they've created. I should say acetaminophen for Tylenol because they're the same chemical compound, but Tylenol is the brand name, and it doesn't work. It's only so powerful, and opioids are way more powerful at reducing pain. And the fact of the matter is, there's obviously a lot more different substances that could help with pain, but the fact of the matter still remains that opioids are the most powerful one we know of at the moment. Kratom is extremely beneficial in this regard from my personal view. I've heard of people taking it for only about a week or a few days after a procedure where their doctor refused to prescribe them opioids because of the excruciating pain that they were in. Now, granted, they have to take a higher dose, more of what they would call a sedative dose rather than a cognitive boosting dose, because they say in lower doses of Kratom with certain strands, because there's 3 strands, red vein, white vein, and green vein, but the jury is still out on if there's really a difference between the alkaloids and all of those. They say that it has a boosting effect and can be a good alternative to things like Adderall, which in my opinion, I doubt that it's nearly as potent as Adderall. Maybe it's good for people who need help with Adderall withdrawal and helping with things that can happen with that. The other use that I've heard so going back to my point, I have heard that it's extremely beneficial for people to use it in short-term bursts when their doctors will not prescribe them opioids. And I'm referring to people who are not addicted to opioids or have opioid addiction. I'm referring to people who just can't get it because there's been a scourge on opioids when people need it. And so going back to my other point is this one I'm not entirely sure of, but I've heard it can be extremely useful for people who have to take opioids for pain. Tylenol and Advil can only work so well, same as aspirin and Aleve. But the fact of the matter is, not that you would take those in conjunction, but the fact of the matter is, I've heard that Kratom can be extremely potent in helping with long-term chronic pain, day in and day out pain that people have to deal with. And especially, as you get older, types of neuropathic pain. Now, in my opinion, if you are in your 70s and 80s and are dealing with severe arthritis, I don't think it's bad to be taking a higher dose of Kratom. This is an opinion, to be clear, not medical advice at all. I don't think it's bad to be taking a higher dose of Kratom to help with that pain day in and day out, as the fact of the matter is, even if it were to have a propensity for addiction and tolerance and you would have to take more and more, you're struggling with extreme amounts of pain on an everyday basis, and I think that would be beneficial. Now, for younger people who have the propensity to try and get rid of their pain or try to solve, what the source of the pain is coming from, I think it would be a Band-Aid in effect. And the fact of the matter is, so basically what I'm trying to say is the fact of the matter, Kratom seems to have a place in short-term aids for people with really strong pain when their doctors will not prescribe them pain medication other than high-dose Tylenol and Advil. And as great as Tylenol and Advil are, some people get amazing effects from them, and some studies have even shown they're better than opioids. I'm not convinced. And I've had many cases where I've had severe, severe pain, and the only thing that would help me was taking Kratom and not Advil and Tylenol. To be clear, I don't take Kratom regularly. In fact, today I took Kratom for the first time in like a year, and that's because I woke up with an extremely messed up neck. It's a lot of pain right now. I also took migraine medication because it's bleeding into a migraine. And don't worry, I checked for drug interactions, so don't worry about that. But I think it's important for people to know that Kratom could have a potential use, and I also am very, very against it being banned. I think Kratom has a lot of potential for safety and efficacy. I think if there were more people testing their Kratom to show what exactly is in every single, capsule and thing that they put out onto the market, it would be a lot safer and a lot better. But the fact still remains that there have only been, I think, 3 deaths related to Kratom, and they were all multi-drug related deaths, meaning people had other drugs in their system when they died. So to blame Kratom for people dying is relatively, silly. The fact of the matter is, can you still overdose on Kratom? Yes, it is very much still possible to overdose on Kratom, but it's typically not common because people will take a small amount of Kratom to help with their pain. It doesn't work. They take more, and then if they start getting too much, they typically fall asleep because of its sedative effects. So they wouldn't even be able to take more, or they would vomit before they get to that point. That's just what I've heard. Obviously anecdotal. Not trying to say this is empirical in any way, shape, or form. But as per usual, do your own research, and I am not your doctor. But I hope everyone is doing well. Remember to keep those shoulders back and down when you lift. I hope everyone is having a great one right now. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. And until next time, I hope everyone has a great one.